Michael Johnson was 12 years old, and he already understood things about life that most kids his age didn't. He'd learned that life could change without warning, and lately, his life seemed to be shifting in ways he didn't fully understand. He didn't know all the details, but he didn't need to. He could see it clearly in his mother, Linda. Her once bright eyes now held shadows that hadn't been there before. Her laughter, which had once filled their home so naturally, came less often, and when it did, it seemed forced, like she was pushing it up from a well that was nearly dry. Michael noticed the small things first. His mom used to tuck him in every night and read him a chapter from one of their favorite books, but lately, she would give him a quick kiss goodnight and head to her room, closing the door behind her. Some nights, he could hear the soft hum of her voice on the phone, murmuring words he couldn't make out, but there was a heaviness in her tone that he'd never heard before. A few weeks ago, he had overheard a conversation she had with someone on the phone. She thought he was in his room, but he had been right outside the door listening. "Yes, I understand. But it's more than I can manage right now. Isn't there anything else we can do?" she had said, her voice cracking slightly. Michael had backed away before he could hear more, feeling a tightening in his chest that he didn't know how to explain. He knew then, without needing to be told, that his mother was sick, and whatever she was dealing with, it was serious. Michael didn't have anyone else to ask about what was going on. His dad wasn't around, and his mom never mentioned him. It had always been just the two of them, a team of two against the world. Now, for the first time, Michael felt that team was at risk. And as he lay awake that night, staring at the darkened ceiling of his room, he knew he had to do something. He just didn't know what. The next afternoon after school, Michael walked home slowly, his mind churning with ideas and worries. When he finally arrived at his room, he sat on his bed, staring down at an empty page in his notebook. He gripped a pencil in his hand, tapping it against his leg as he thought. "How can I help Mom?" he whispered to himself, and then, as if answering his own question, he wrote the words at the top of the page, circling them with small drawings of lemons. Lemonade. It was something simple, something he knew how to make, and maybe, just maybe, it could be enough to help his mom get the treatment she needed. But a part of him doubted it, too. Would anyone even care enough to buy lemonade from a 12-year-old kid? And how much money could he really make? Michael sighed, staring at the words on the page, but then he felt a flicker of hope. What did he have to lose? If he did nothing, nothing would change. But if he tried, if he even made a little money, it would be better than doing nothing at all. The next morning, he woke up early, slipping quietly out of his bed and tiptoeing to the kitchen so he wouldn't wake his mom. He didn't have much to work with, but he found a bag of lemons in the fridge, some sugar in the cabinet, and a large glass jar they used for water on hot days. Carefully, he squeezed each lemon, watching the juice drip into the jar, then added the sugar and stirred until his arm grew tired. He took a small sip, nodding in satisfaction. It tasted just right. He grabbed an old table from the garage and dragged it out to the edge of their front yard, setting it up under the tree. Michael looked around, trying to imagine what else he might need. The setup was simple, just a table with mismatched cups and a sign he had hastily made with markers. Lemonade for Mom's treatment, $1. As he set the sign on the table, he hesitated, his stomach fluttering with nerves. Would anyone actually stop? Minutes passed. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, glancing down the street. He could hear the faint sounds of neighbors starting their morning routines, the rumble of car engines, the faint clink of someone opening a mailbox. He started to wonder if this was a silly idea. Maybe he should just go back inside and pretend he'd never tried it. But then he saw her, Mrs. Margaret Thompson, their neighbor from down the street, who had known him since he was born. She walked slowly, leaning on her cane, her small dog trotting beside her. As she got closer, her eyes fell on the sign, and she stopped, tilting her head as she read it. Her gaze shifted to Michael, and he could see her expression soften, the beginnings of a sad smile forming on her face. "Well, if it isn't young Michael Johnson," she said, her voice warm and gentle. "What's this all about, dear?" Michael's heart pounded in his chest, but he took a deep breath. "I'm selling lemonade to help my mom," he said, his voice steady, though his hands trembled slightly. She needs treatment, and I thought this might help." Mrs. Thompson's eyes widened slightly, and she looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite decipher. It was something between pride and sadness, mixed with a kind of understanding that only someone much older could have. She opened her purse, pulling out $2 bills. "I'll take 2 cups if you don't mind," she said softly, handing the bills to Michael. He quickly poured the lemonade into 2 cups, handing them to her with careful hands. As she took a sip, she closed her eyes for a moment, then looked at him, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "You're a good boy, Michael," she whispered. "Your mother is very lucky to have you." Michael swallowed, feeling a lump in his throat, and managed a small smile. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson." As she walked away, he watched her go, feeling something inside him shift. Her small act of kindness filled him with a new sense of determination. This could work. If one person was willing to help, maybe others would too. That afternoon after school, Michael couldn't wait to tell his two best friends, Emily and Jacob, about his plan. They always hung out at the swings near the school, and he knew he'd find them there. He ran across the field, his mind racing with excitement. "Hey guys," he called, waving as he approached them. Emily looked up from her book, and Jacob jumped off the swing, grinning. "What's up, Mike?" Jacob asked, sensing his friend's energy. "I need your help," Michael said, out of breath. "I started a lemonade stand to help my mom. She needs money for treatment, and I think people will buy it, but I need more people to know about it. Do you think you could help me make signs? Maybe put them up around the neighborhood?" Emily's eyes lit up with excitement, and she instantly smiled. "Absolutely. That's such a great idea, Michael." She hugged him tightly, surprising him with her enthusiasm. "Let's make sure everyone in town hears about it." Jacob nodded, putting a hand on Michael's shoulder. "Yeah, we can put up signs at the park, at the school, everywhere people will see them. This is a really good idea, Mike." Michael's chest swelled with gratitude. Standing there with Emily and Jacob, he felt a warmth he hadn't felt in days. For the first time, he felt he wasn't alone in trying to help his mom. With his friends by his side, he could imagine the plan actually working. "Thank you guys," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, but they both heard the emotion in his words. As they started planning where to put the signs, Michael felt the first glimmer of hope he'd had in weeks. This was just the beginning, and he was ready for whatever came next. Over the next few days, things looked brighter for Michael. Emily and Jacob dedicated their afternoons to helping him, working tirelessly to spread the word about his lemonade stand. They made dozens of bright, eye-catching flyers in all shapes and colors, complete with hand-drawn lemons and messages about helping Michael's mom. The three of them walked the entire town, taping the signs to every available surface: trees, light poles, community boards, even the door of the local bakery. Michael could hardly believe the support that started pouring in. People from the neighborhood, and even from streets he didn't recognize, began stopping by. Some left extra money, others brought their friends, and many stayed to chat with him, asking about his mom and offering him encouragement. Each sale lifted his spirits a little more, making him feel like maybe, just maybe, they'd get through this. One afternoon, he and Emily were refilling cups at the stand when he noticed a woman he hadn't seen before pull up in her car. She stepped out, wearing a thoughtful expression, and approached the table with a small smile. "Are you Michael?" she asked, eyeing the sign with interest. "Yes, ma'am," Michael replied, standing up a little straighter. "Would you like some lemonade? All the money goes toward my mom's treatment." The woman's face softened. "I'd love a cup." She took out a $5 bill, handing it to him. "And you can keep the change." Michael smiled, grateful, and poured her a cup. "Thank you so much." The woman looked at him for a moment, as if searching for the right words. "You know, Michael, what you're doing here, it's remarkable. Your mother must be so proud of you." Michael felt his cheeks flush. "Thank you, ma'am. She means everything to me." The woman nodded, giving him a warm smile before she walked back to her car. Each interaction like this made Michael feel more hopeful and grounded, like the whole town was rallying behind him and his mother. Strich. The success of the stand continued to build over the following days. Every time someone dropped off a little extra money, or bought more cups than they could drink, Michael's heart filled with gratitude. Emily and Jacob were as committed as ever, showing up after school to help him keep things running smoothly. But life, as Michael would soon find out, had its own way of testing resilience. On the morning of the third day, Michael noticed a heaviness in the air as he set up the stand, but he pushed his nerves aside, eager for another productive day. He was carefully arranging cups and making sure everything was in place when Emily ran over, her face tight with worry. "Michael, I just heard. They're saying something about a storm coming," she blurted, glancing nervously at the sky. "My mom wants me home soon." Michael felt a pang of worry but forced a smile. "It's okay, Em. Go home, I'll pack up quickly and follow after. Thanks for helping me set up." Emily gave him a quick hug, looking over her shoulder as she ran back down the street toward her house. But before Michael could begin packing up, the wind began to pick up speed, pulling at his sign and rattling the jars on his table. He felt his heart sink as he hurriedly reached for the cups, trying to salvage as much as he could. Within moments, the wind grew even stronger, sending his supplies tumbling across the pavement. "No, no, no," Michael muttered to himself, rushing after the scattered cups. Each step he took to collect something, the wind seemed to rip another piece away. It felt like he was in a losing battle, fighting against a force too big to control. The wind tore through the stand, ripping apart the sign that he, Emily, and Jacob had made with so much care. The jar of lemonade tipped over, spilling its contents in a large, sticky pool on the ground. As Michael looked around, he felt the lump in his throat grow as he saw his hard work scattered and ruined. One last gust blew through, knocking the table over and sending it crashing against the fence. The empty jar rolled across the ground, stopping at his feet. He bent down to pick it up, gripping it tightly as he tried to hold back the wave of emotion threatening to overwhelm him. His savings, his hard work, his hope, everything felt shattered, reduced to broken pieces scattered on the street. For a moment, he just stood there, clutching the empty jar, staring at the wreckage of his little stand. He could feel the sting of tears at the corner of his eyes, but he blinked them back, taking a deep breath. He knew he had to go home. His mom was waiting for him, and he couldn't let her see the weight of his disappointment. When he finally reached home, Linda was waiting for him in the living room, a soft smile on her face as she looked up. "Hey, sweetheart," she said gently. "How was your day?" Michael's stomach twisted, and he tried to find the strength to smile back. It was fine, Mom," he managed, his voice barely above a whisper. Linda's gaze sharpened, and she took in his expression. "Michael," she said quietly, "what happened?" He opened his mouth to say something, to brush it off like everything was okay, but the words wouldn't come. He could feel the tears building, and he turned his face away, trying to hide the sadness that was suddenly too heavy to hold back. "I just had a rough day," he said finally, his voice thick. "But it's nothing. I'll figure it out." Linda stepped forward, her eyes filled with concern. "You know you can tell me anything, right? Whatever's going on. I'm here." Michael only nodded, not trusting himself to say more. He could see the worry in his mother's eyes, but he knew that if he told her everything, if he let her see how hopeless he felt, it would only add to the weight she was already carrying. So he forced himself to straighten up, offering her a shaky smile. "It's really okay, Mom. I'll be fine," he said, trying to sound as convincing as he could. Linda studied him for a moment, but eventually nodded, giving him a gentle pat on the shoulder. "All right, sweetheart. I trust you." That night, as he lay in bed, Michael replayed the events of the day over and over in his mind, wondering if he could have done something different, if he could have saved even a little of what he'd worked for. His eyelids grew heavy, and he finally drifted off to sleep, still clutching the empty jar, wondering how he would ever start over. The story of Michael's lemonade stand had started as a small thing, but as neighbors talked, word spread, and soon people all around Maplewood had heard about the 12-year-old boy who was working every day to help pay for his mother's treatment. The story reached stores, schools, even the town's community center. It caught the attention of strangers, but most importantly, it reached Catherine Evans. Catherine Evans was well known in Maplewood, though she hadn't lived there for years. She'd grown up in this town, leaving to build a career as a businesswoman in the city. Over the years, she became a philanthropist, supporting causes close to her heart. Maplewood held special memories for her, though she hadn't been back in nearly a decade. But when she heard about Michael's lemonade stand, something resonated deeply within her. She couldn't ignore the story, and after a few days of thinking about it, she decided she needed to meet him. That Saturday afternoon, Michael was in the front yard, sitting near his broken stand, deep in thought. He was trying to figure out how to rebuild when a sleek black car pulled up in front of his house, catching his attention. He watched as a woman stepped out, well-dressed and elegant, with an air of confidence that immediately commanded attention. Michael couldn't take his eyes off her as she walked toward him, smiling warmly. "Are you Michael Johnson?" she asked, her voice gentle but firm. Her smile was kind, almost maternal, as if she understood exactly why he was out there. Michael nodded, still a little stunned. "Yes, ma'am." She extended a hand. "I'm Catherine Evans. I heard about your lemonade stand and how you're working to help your mother." Michael shook her hand, feeling both shy and relieved. I was. But a storm came, and everything got ruined. I was just trying to figure out what to do next," he admitted, embarrassed at how helpless he sounded. Catherine nodded thoughtfully, glancing at the scattered remains of the stand. "Well, it sounds like you've been doing something truly incredible. Not everyone your age would think to help their family like this. I'd love to speak with you and your mother about how I might help." Michael's heart skipped a beat. "You want to help us?" "Yes," she said, nodding with a gentle smile. "Sometimes, all it takes is one person to make a difference. And sometimes, that person is someone who just needs a little support. Can we go inside and talk to your mom?" Without another word, Michael led her to the door. He knocked softly before opening it, calling out, "Mom? There's someone here who wants to meet you." Linda was resting on the couch, but she sat up immediately, a curious look on her face. Catherine stepped forward, introducing herself with a warm smile. "Linda, it's so nice to meet you. I'm Catherine Evans," she began, extending her hand. Linda shook her hand, still a little bewildered. "It's nice to meet you too. Michael, who?" Catherine heard about the lemonade stand, Michael explained, his excitement barely contained. "She said she might be able to help us, Mom." Catherine took a seat across from them, her expression serious but kind. "Linda, I grew up in Maplewood, and I've always cared deeply about this town. When I heard about Michael's determination to help you, I knew I had to do something. His effort and courage are inspiring." Linda looked at her son, her eyes full of pride and gratitude, though a shadow of worry remained. He's a good boy," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "But I just hate that he's had to worry about me like this." Michael reached out, touching his mother's hand. "Mom, I wanted to do this. I know you'd do the same for me," he said quietly. Catherine took in the scene, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. "Michael, your strength is what brought me here. I want to support you both. I have an idea," she said, looking between them. "I'm organizing a charity event here in Maplewood. It's meant to raise funds for families facing hard times. How would you feel about setting up your lemonade stand at the event?" Michael's eyes widened. "At the event? With everyone there?" "Yes," Catherine said with a nod. "It would be a way for people to support your cause directly. You'd sell your lemonade, and all the proceeds would go toward helping your mom. We'd make sure everyone knows your story so they can support you." Linda placed a hand over her mouth, visibly moved. "Catherine, this is more than we could ever ask for." Catherine smiled gently. "It's my pleasure. And Michael, if you're up for it, I think we can make this a real success." Michael's mind raced. The idea of his lemonade stand being a part of something so big was overwhelming, but the excitement bubbling up inside him was impossible to ignore. I'd love to," he said, barely able to contain his grin. "Wonderful!" Catherine exclaimed. She reached into her bag, pulling out a business card and handing it to Linda. "Here's my contact information. We'll start planning the details, and I'll make sure that everything is ready for you at the event." Linda took the card with trembling hands, her eyes shimmering with gratitude. "Thank you, Catherine. I don't know how to express how much this means to us." Catherine nodded, her expression sincere. "You don't need to thank me. Just know that we're in this together now. And Michael," she said, turning to him, "you've already shown everyone what true dedication looks like. All I'm doing is giving you a little boost." Michael felt a wave of relief and pride, finally believing that things might work out. He looked at his mother, who was smiling through her tears, and felt the heavy burden in his chest lift just a little. For the first time in weeks, he felt like he could truly breathe again. The next day, Michael was helping his mom with breakfast when he heard a knock on the door. He opened it to see Catherine standing there, this time accompanied by a man in a sharp suit, holding a folder and a warm smile. Catherine introduced him as William Harris, her assistant, and Michael immediately noticed the way William's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as he looked down at him. "Hi, Michael," Catherine began, her voice steady and encouraging. "We have something special to discuss with you." Michael invited them in, feeling a thrill of excitement mixed with nerves. Linda joined them in the living room, and William opened his folder, taking out a few documents and a flyer, which he handed to Michael. At the top of the flyer, in bold letters, was written, "Maplewood Benefit Gala, helping families in need." "Michael," William began, "we're organizing this charity event to support families here in Maplewood who are going through tough times. Catherine and I talked, and we believe your lemonade stand would be an incredible addition to the event." Michael blinked, processing the idea, his eyes widening as he looked between William and Catherine. You want me to sell my lemonade at the gala?" he asked, barely able to contain his excitement but still filled with disbelief. William grinned, giving him an encouraging nod. "Exactly. We want everyone at the event to see what you're doing for your mom. They'll have the chance to buy a cup and support your cause directly. It'll be a hit, I'm sure of it." Michael's heart raced. He glanced over at his mom, who was looking at him with a mixture of pride and surprise. Linda leaned forward, her voice soft with emotion. "Are you sure?" she asked Catherine and William, her eyes slightly glistening. "You really think people will support him like this?" Catherine placed a reassuring hand on Linda's. "Absolutely. We've already started talking about Michael's story, and everyone is inspired by what he's doing. Once people hear his story, I have no doubt they'll want to help in any way they can." Michael took a deep breath, absorbing the weight of their words. "I guess I didn't think anyone would care that much," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. William leaned in, looking Michael straight in the eyes. "People care more than you know, Michael. When they see someone young, brave, and determined to make a difference, it inspires them to be a part of that effort. And that's exactly what you're doing." A smile crept onto Michael's face, a spark of hope growing within him. "All right," he said, nodding. "I'll do it. I'll set up my stand at the gala." Catherine beamed, clapping her hands together. "Wonderful. Now, let's talk about what you'll need." She exchanged a quick look with William, who nodded and pulled out a list. "We're going to help you make this the best lemonade stand Maplewood has ever seen," William said. "But you'll need a few extra hands. Catherine told me about your friends, Emily and Jacob. Would they be interested in helping out?" Michael laughed, the idea lighting up his face. "They'd love it. Emily's great with decorations, and Jacob's amazing with organization. They'll be so excited to be part of this." Linda watched her son, pride filling her gaze. "Michael," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "you're going to do something truly amazing." The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Emily and Jacob arrived every afternoon after school, eager to help. Jacob drew up a plan for organizing the lemonade station, making a list of everything they'd need. "We should have extra cups, napkins, maybe some decorations to make it stand out," he explained as they huddled around the table. Emily nodded, sketching designs for a new sign. "Let's make it big and bright," she said, grinning at Michael. "We want everyone to see it as soon as they walk in." Word about the gala spread quickly, and before long, other members of the community began to join in. James Collins, the local baker, stopped by one afternoon with a tray of cupcakes. "These are for your stand," he said, winking at Michael. "A little something sweet to go with your lemonade." Michael's jaw dropped. "Mr. Collins, thank you so much." James chuckled, patting Michael on the shoulder. "You're doing something incredible, kid. Maplewood is behind you." As the days passed, Michael felt both nervous and excited. He could hardly believe how many people were supporting him, offering supplies and encouragement. Laura Mitchell, his favorite teacher, gathered students from his school to help make posters for the gala. The posters featured colorful images of lemons and phrases like "Support Michael's stand," "Make a difference," and "Lemonade with a purpose." By the time the event day approached, the living room was filled with supplies, cups, decorations, posters, and ingredients for the lemonade. On the night before the gala, Linda found Michael going through the checklist for what felt like the 100th time. He looked up when she walked in, his face a mixture of excitement and worry. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" Linda asked, taking a seat beside him. Michael shrugged, giving her a small smile. "I just want it to go well. I mean, everyone's put in so much effort to help me. What if it's not enough? What if it doesn't make a difference?" Linda reached out, placing her hand on his shoulder. "Michael, it already has made a difference. You brought people together, inspired kindness, and showed this entire town what determination looks like. That is more than enough." He nodded, a quiet determination settling over him. "Thanks, Mom. I want to make you proud." Linda hugged him tightly, her voice barely a whisper. "You already have, honey. More than you know." As he lay in bed that night, Michael couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He knew that tomorrow was going to be a day he'd remember forever, one that would either bring him closer to his goal or test him in ways he hadn't yet imagined. On the day of the event, Michael arrived at the park with his mom, Emily, and Jacob, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves he'd never felt before. As they walked up to the setup area, he could already see dozens of people milling around, more than he'd ever imagined. There were rows of tables decorated with bright banners and booths offering food, crafts, and raffle tickets. But the largest crowd seemed to be gathering near a single table with a large lemon-colored sign that read, "Michael's Lemonade Stand, Helping a Hero." "Wow, Michael," Emily whispered, nudging him. "Look at all these people. They're really here for you." Michael's heart raced as he took it all in, trying to process the sight before him. He hadn't expected this many people, and he certainly hadn't expected to see so many familiar faces, all of whom had come out to support him and his mom. As they approached the lemonade stand, Catherine Evans appeared from behind the booth, waving them over with a beaming smile. "Michael, Linda, welcome," she greeted, hugging Linda warmly and then turning to Michael with a proud smile. "Are you ready for your big day?" Michael swallowed, trying to steady his nerves. "I think so." "You're going to do great," Catherine assured him, patting him on the back. "The whole town is behind you." Just as she said this, the mayor, Richard Anderson, approached, followed by a small group of town officials. He wore a wide smile and reached out to shake Michael's hand. "Michael, I'm Richard Anderson, the mayor of Maplewood," he said, his voice full of warmth. "I've been hearing about your lemonade stand from just about everyone in town." Michael shook his hand, trying to find his voice. "Thank you, Mr. Anderson." The mayor smiled, placing a hand on Michael's shoulder. "Son, you're doing something extraordinary here. You're showing everyone what it means to truly care about family and community. Keep it up, you're making Maplewood proud." Michael couldn't help but smile, the mayor's words filling him with a renewed sense of confidence. "Thank you, sir. It means a lot to me, and to my mom," he replied, glancing at Linda, who was watching him with tears in her eyes. As the day went on, more people gathered around the stand, each person buying a cup of lemonade and offering words of encouragement. Some people left extra donations, stuffing dollar bills into the small glass jar marked "Help for Linda." Every few minutes, Michael looked up to find familiar faces in the crowd. His teachers, neighbors, friends of his mom, and people he barely knew, all there to support him. "Michael!" a voice called from the crowd, and he turned to see Mrs. Margaret Thompson, his neighbor, smiling and waving as she approached. She held out a $20 bill. "I'll take 2 cups," she said, winking. "And you keep the change, all right?" Michael grinned, quickly filling 2 cups and handing them to her. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson," he said, his gratitude overflowing. Margaret took a sip and nodded approvingly. "Best lemonade in town, Michael. You keep at it." As the line continued to grow, Michael noticed Emily and Jacob working tirelessly beside him, filling cups and managing the money jar, both of them grinning from ear to ear. Every time Michael looked at them, they flashed him a thumbs up, as if silently cheering him on. "Hey Mike," Jacob said as he handed a cup to a customer, "we're selling out fast. I think we'll need to start mixing up a new batch soon." Michael laughed, feeling a surge of pride. "I can't believe it. People are actually buying everything." But the biggest surprise came when a familiar figure pushed his way through the crowd, carrying a guitar case and wearing a leather jacket. Michael's jaw dropped when he recognized him. Daniel Roberts, a musician known for his charity work and a favorite in town. Daniel Roberts. Michael whispered, turning to Emily, who looked just as shocked. Daniel caught Michael's eye and grinned. "You must be Michael," he said, shaking Michael's hand. "I've heard all about you and this amazing lemonade stand of yours." "Why you've heard about me?" Michael stammered, still in disbelief. "Absolutely. I couldn't miss out on something this special," Daniel replied, setting up his guitar on the stage nearby. "In fact, I thought I'd play a few songs to help draw in even more people. How about that?" The crowd erupted in applause, and Michael could barely believe what was happening. As Daniel began to play, his voice filling the park, people started to gather even closer, drawn by the music and the story of the lemonade stand. More and more customers lined up, each person smiling and clapping as they bought a cup. The money jar quickly overflowed, and Michael found himself constantly restocking with Emily and Jacob. He was caught in a whirlwind of handshakes, hugs, and high-fives as people showed their support. By mid-afternoon, the entire town seemed to be there, and Michael's stand had sold hundreds of cups of lemonade. At one point, he glanced over at his mom, who was sitting nearby, her face full of pride and gratitude as she watched her son, surrounded by love and encouragement from the community. As Daniel finished his last song, he walked back over to Michael, grinning as he placed a $50 bill in the jar. "Keep it up, Michael. You're doing something that matters, and I'm honored to be a part of it." Michael's heart felt like it would burst from gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Roberts. I'll never forget this," he managed, his voice thick with emotion. As the sun started to set, Michael looked around at the park filled with smiling faces and felt a surge of hope he hadn't felt in a long time. He was part of something bigger than he'd ever imagined, and it was all because he dared to try, to believe, and to ask for help. For the first time, he felt truly supported, surrounded by a community that wanted him to succeed. As the event continued, Michael found himself surrounded by laughter, music, and familiar faces. He was refilling cups when he caught sight of a boy standing on the edge of the crowd, alone and a bit detached from the bustling excitement around him. The boy's shoulders were hunched slightly, his hands stuffed into his pockets, and he seemed to be studying the lemonade stand with a mixture of curiosity and hesitation. Michael felt a tug of empathy for him, remembering the anxious feeling he'd had just a few weeks ago when he'd first set up his lemonade stand. Determined to make him feel welcome, Michael excused himself from Emily and Jacob and made his way over. "Hey there," Michael greeted with a friendly smile. "I'm Michael. You want some lemonade?" The boy shifted, glancing at the ground, his face flushing slightly. I'm Tommy," he mumbled, barely meeting Michael's eyes. I saw what you're doing and, well, it's really cool." "Thanks, Tommy," Michael said, genuinely touched. He noticed that Tommy was nervously fiddling with the hem of his shirt. "You know, it's been a bit overwhelming here today. I could definitely use some extra hands. Would you maybe want to help out?" Tommy looked up, his eyes wide with surprise. "Me? Help?" Michael nodded. "Yeah, of course. We could always use an extra person to serve lemonade, and I'm guessing you'd be pretty good at it." Tommy hesitated, then shrugged. "I don't know. I don't really talk to people much. I'd probably mess it up or do something wrong." Michael shook his head. "You're not going to mess it up. Look, when I started this, I was nervous too. I wasn't sure anyone would even buy the lemonade. But my friends helped me, and I got more comfortable. You'll be great, promise." Tommy glanced back toward the stand, where Emily and Jacob were busy chatting with customers. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "You really think I could help?" Michael grinned, giving him an encouraging nod. "Absolutely. We're all learning as we go. Besides, we're a team here. How about you come over and give it a shot?" Tommy's face brightened with a flicker of excitement. "Okay, yeah, I'd like to try." Together, they walked over to the stand. Emily noticed them approaching and gave Tommy a friendly wave. "Hi, I'm Emily," she said with a smile. "Are you joining us?" Tommy nodded shyly. "Yeah, if that's okay." "Of course it's okay." Jacob chimed in, handing Tommy an apron. "The more the merrier. Here, take this, official lemonade server uniform." Tommy laughed softly, feeling the warmth and acceptance from the group. He tied the apron on, glancing over at Michael, who gave him a thumbs up. They showed Tommy the ropes, guiding him through the simple steps of pouring lemonade, adding ice, and handing out cups. At first, Tommy's hands shook a little as he poured, but each time he looked up, he found Michael's encouraging smile or a gentle nod from Emily. Little by little, his confidence began to grow. A few minutes later, a mother and her young daughter approached the stand, and Tommy found himself on the front line, cup in hand. He hesitated, glancing at Michael, who gave him a reassuring smile. "Just smile and ask if they'd like a cup," Michael whispered. "You got this." Taking a deep breath, Tommy turned to the woman and her daughter. Would you like some lemonade?" he asked, his voice quiet but steady. The woman smiled warmly, nodding. "Yes, please. One for each of us." Tommy carefully poured 2 cups, handing one to the woman and the other to the little girl, who giggled and thanked him. A sense of pride lit up his face as he completed the sale, and he looked back at Michael, grinning. "I did it," he said, almost in disbelief. "You did great," Michael replied, patting him on the back. "See? Nothing to it." From then on, Tommy worked the stand like he'd been there all along, his confidence growing with each customer he served. Michael watched as the shy boy who had lingered at the edges of the crowd transformed, his shoulders relaxing, his voice getting stronger. Soon, Tommy was even greeting people with a small smile and a nod, finding his rhythm. As the day wore on, Tommy continued to help, staying close to Michael and the others. At one point, he looked at Michael with a thoughtful expression. "I've never really felt like I belonged anywhere," he admitted quietly. "But here, with you guys, I don't feel like that." Michael gave him a smile. "Well, you do belong here. You're part of the team now." Tommy's face lit up, his gratitude evident. He stood a little taller, his newfound courage shining through as he served the next round of customers with pride. By the end of the day, Tommy had become a key member of the team, seamlessly working alongside Emily, Jacob, and Michael. And in that single day, he discovered not only the courage to step forward but the sense of friendship and belonging he'd always wanted. The day continued, and as evening approached, Michael could hardly believe the scene before him. The lemonade stand was nearly sold out, and the donation jar was overflowing. Dozens of people still surrounded the stand, chatting happily, while Tommy, Emily, and Jacob worked tirelessly beside him, serving the last few cups. For Michael, it felt like a dream, one that he was almost afraid to wake up from. Catherine Evans approached the stand, clapping her hands to gather everyone's attention. The crowd quieted as she stood next to Michael, a smile of pure pride on her face. "Everyone," she began, her voice filled with warmth, "I'd like to thank you all for coming out today to support Michael and his incredible effort to help his mother. What this young man has done here is nothing short of inspiring." The crowd burst into applause, and Michael's cheeks flushed as he glanced down, feeling both overwhelmed and grateful. Catherine put a gentle hand on his shoulder and continued, "And because Michael has shown such dedication and strength, I want to share something special with all of you. I'll personally be doubling the amount he raised today." Gasps filled the crowd, and Michael's eyes widened as he stared at Catherine, hardly able to process what she just said. "Doubling it," he repeated, his voice catching. His throat tightened, and he felt his eyes start to sting. Catherine nodded, her eyes soft with compassion. "Yes, Michael. It's the least we can do to show our appreciation for everything you've done for your mom. And I know the entire town stands behind you." The crowd cheered, and Michael's emotions overflowed. Tears welled up, and he covered his face with his hands, feeling an immense gratitude that he couldn't put into words. The crowd's applause grew louder, and he felt Emily and Jacob squeeze his shoulders, their faces shining with pride. Linda, watching from a few steps away, approached Catherine, her face etched with emotion. "Catherine, I don't even know what to say. It's beyond anything we could have imagined." Catherine reached out, holding Linda's hands in her own. "Linda, it's Michael who inspired all of us. He reminded us of the power of family, love, and resilience. We're all just here to lift you up the way Michael has lifted this whole town." Linda's tears spilled over as she pulled Michael into a tight embrace, her voice breaking as she whispered, "I'm so proud of you, Michael. So proud." Just then William, Catherine's assistant, stepped forward, his expression warm and focused. He looked at Linda and Michael with a kindness that went beyond simple support. Clearing his throat, he turned to Linda. "Linda," he began, his voice steady, "Catherine and I have discussed this, and we'd like to help even further." Linda looked at him, slightly puzzled, as he continued, "We'd like to cover the cost of the entire treatment for you. Completely." For a moment, Linda simply stared, the weight of his words sinking in. You want to cover all of it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. William nodded, a reassuring smile on his face. "Yes. Michael's hard work has moved us all deeply, and we want to make sure you have what you need without the added financial stress. Consider it our gift to you." Linda's hands flew to her mouth, and tears streamed down her cheeks. She turned to Michael, pulling him into a hug so tight that it was as if she was afraid to let go, as though in letting go, this miracle might disappear. "Oh, Michael," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "This is everything we needed." Michael's arms tightened around her, feeling the weight of everything they'd faced together lift in a single beautiful moment. His own tears mingled with hers as they held each other, overwhelmed with gratitude and relief. The crowd watched, many wiping away their own tears, their applause thunderous and heartfelt. Michael felt an immense wave of love from everyone around him, from his friends and family to the townspeople who had shown up to support him in ways he'd never imagined. Catherine leaned in, her voice soft but full of warmth. "You've done something truly remarkable, Michael. We're all so proud to be a part of your story." As the event came to a close, Michael stood with his friends and family, surrounded by an entire community that had come together, united by the strength and love that he had shown. He knew that this was only the beginning, and with everyone by his side, there was nothing he couldn't face. The incredible success of the event had transformed Michael in ways he couldn't have predicted. It wasn't just the relief that his mother's treatment was now covered. It was something deeper, a feeling that he was part of something larger than himself. That night, lying in bed, Michael thought about everyone who had helped, about the kindness from people he barely knew, and about how powerful it felt to be united with a purpose. As the days went on, Michael returned to his lemonade stand. This time, though, he wasn't there just to raise money for his mom. The stand became something more, a place for the community to come together. Every day after school, he'd set it up in front of his house, and slowly, the purpose of the lemonade stand evolved. He began putting a portion of his earnings aside, thinking about other families in Maplewood who might be struggling too. One afternoon, as he was packing up, Emily and Jacob came over, both wearing broad smiles. "So what's next, Michael?" Emily asked, leaning against the stand. "Are you going to keep this going?" "Yeah, I mean, people keep showing up, and it feels right to keep it going," Michael said thoughtfully. "But I was thinking, maybe we could do even more. Like, we could use this stand to raise money for others too." Jacob's face lit up. "You mean, make this about helping people around town?" Michael nodded, feeling a surge of excitement at the idea. "Exactly. I was thinking we could start a group or something, a way for kids like us to work together and help people. Not just with lemonade, but other ways too. I mean, we've got enough energy to do just about anything." Emily grinned, clapping her hands together. "I love it. A group of young people, like, a team to help those in need. We could even host events." Michael's mind raced, ideas sparking one after another. "Yeah, we could call ourselves something like Young Hearts or, I don't know, Young Helpers?" Or, he thought aloud, searching for the perfect name, what about Young Hope? Jacob suggested, nodding enthusiastically. "It says exactly what we're about." Michael looked at his friends, feeling a sense of unity and purpose that gave him chills. "Or maybe Young Solidarity," he said finally, the name resonating in his mind. "It's about all of us working together, being there for each other, like the town was there for me." The group agreed, and Young Solidarity was born. In the days that followed, the word spread fast. Catherine, delighted with their new mission, offered to help with planning, and the town rallied behind the idea. Soon, other kids joined in, each eager to help with different projects. Their first big event was a bake sale to raise money for school supplies for children who couldn't afford them. Mrs. Thompson baked her famous cookies, and Tommy worked alongside Michael, passing out treats to customers with a newfound confidence that brought a smile to everyone's face. Emily designed the signs, and Jacob organized a team to keep track of donations. They raised more money than they expected, and the gratitude they received from families who benefited from the event only fueled their passion. Over time, the lemonade stand became a hub for community support. People stopped by to talk, to help, or simply to see what new project Young Solidarity was working on. Each time they set up, more people volunteered, inspired by Michael's vision and the example he had set. Maplewood's young people, once just a group of friends trying to support a single cause, had become a powerful force for good. One day, as Michael was cleaning up after a long day at the stand, Linda came out and joined him. She watched him in silence for a moment, her eyes filled with pride. "Michael," she said softly, "do you realize what you've done?" He looked up, a bit confused. I wanted to help." Linda placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You've changed this town. You've shown people that even the smallest effort can make a huge difference. You've inspired them, Michael. You've inspired me." Michael felt a surge of emotion, realizing the truth in her words. What had started as a simple lemonade stand to help his mom had grown into something much larger. And the change wasn't just in Maplewood, it was within him too. He'd learned that compassion and determination could unite people, that a single idea could grow and ripple out to affect so many lives. As he closed up the stand that evening, He looked at the small wooden sign he'd painted all those months ago. Michael's Lemonade Stand. It was a humble beginning for what had now become a movement in Maplewood. And as he took down the sign, he knew that young solidarity was only the beginning. With the support of friends, family, and a town that believed in him, Michael had discovered the power of giving back. And as he looked toward the future, he knew that there was no limit to what they could accomplish together.
If you've made it this far, then subscribe to the channel and leave a comment.